Okay, so get ready for this, because today we're going deep on something pretty wild.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a parody script called The Perfect Pair.
Hmm.
And from what I've seen so far, it's basically like someone took like Resident Evil, a rom-com, and then like a stand-up routine and just threw it all into a blender.
Wow.
I know, right? We're talking zombies, we're talking awkward romance, and I mean enough cheesy jokes to make you laugh and de-groan at the same time.
I mean, that sounds like quite a combination.
Right. So are you ready to see what we can uncover in this thing?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, so one thing that really struck me right off the bat is that with this script, we're not just, handed a story,
Yeah,
right? Instead, we're given all the ingredients to kind of see how parody works.
it's true.
Yeah, they give us like character descriptions, stage directions, even like specific notes on how the dialogue should be delivered.
I see what you mean. It's like we're getting a masterclass in how to write comedy.
Exactly. It's like we get to peek behind the curtain and see how the whole thing comes together.
I like that.
So speaking of seeing how things come together, I think it's time to meet the stars of the show.
Okay.
Or should I say the perfect pair themselves, Jill Valentine and Leon S. Kennedy.
Ah, two Resident Evil icons.
Right. But it's interesting. This script really leans into all their, I guess you could say, baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like for Jill, she's still dealing with the loss of her partner, Chris Redfield.
Yeah, that's a pretty heavy burden to carry.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Leon, who's, well...
He's Leon.
Exactly. He's just Leon.
That's a good point. The script really emphasizes their differences.
Totally. It's like they're total opposites.
Right. It describes Jill as serious and deadpan.
Yeah.
Which I think makes for this great dynamic with Leon, who's described as jokey and easygoing.
Even when they're surrounded by zombies.
Right. Even in the face of the apocalypse, Leon's cracking jokes.
It's almost like the parody's asking, can love bloom even when you're fighting brain-eating monsters?
Haha! Yeah, it's a pretty unique premise.
But, all with a lot of puns.
Of course, it wouldn't be Leon without the puns.
Exactly. And speaking of Leon, did you notice how his voice type is literally just described as Leon?
Yeah, I chuckled when I saw that.
I mean, what does that even mean?
It's like the writers are assuming that we, the audience, know Leon's voice so well that it's basically a character trait in itself.
It's true, though. I can hear his voice in my head right now.
Me too. It's that iconic, slightly cheesy but charming delivery.
And to really drive home those cheesy lines, the script actually gives him a gem after he blows up a bunch of liquors with a gas canister.
Let me guess. Something involving cooking meat.
You got it. He asks Jill, hey, do you like your liquors medium rare?
Classic Leon.
I know, right? It's so cheesy, but you just can't help but laugh.
It's that perfect blend of parody and character, It pokes fun at Leon's love for bad jokes, but it also feels true to who he is.
Yeah, and you can't take it too seriously because it's clear the script is playing with those familiar tropes.
Right, it's like winking at the audience and saying, we all know Leon does this, let's have a laugh about it.
Okay, so we've got Jill and Leon, the perfect pair, but we can't forget about the antagonists, the vices that try to pull them apart.
Ah, yes, the villains of the story.
Right, and in this case, we have two who are, let's just say, quite a handful.
Really?
Yeah, we've got Maria Gomez, Leon's obsessive ex-girlfriend.
Oh, that's always a recipe for disaster.
I know, right? And then we have Dylan Blake, who is, get this, a Neil Diamond impersonator turned bioterrorist.
Wait, what? A Neil Diamond impersonator?
Yep, you heard that right.
It's unexpected, to say the least.
I know. What a combination, right? You've got the scorned ex-lover and a wannabe Neil Diamond trying to take over the world.
Now, that's an interesting dynamic. You've got two completely different villain archetypes.
Yeah, and the way the script plays them off each other is hilarious.
So tell me more about these villains. What makes them tick?
Well, Maria, she's basically dripping with over-the-top drama. It's almost like she's spitting Shakespearean insults while she's plotting her revenge.
Ah, the classic femme fatale.
Exactly. It's like the script is using her to poke fun at those like classic emotionally driven villains you see all the time.
And what about Dylan? What's his deal?
Oh, Dylan's a whole other story. He's completely obsessed with staging the most perfect bioterrorist attack ever.
That sounds terrifying, but also kind of ridiculous.
It is. And get this. His plan apparently involves a BOW shark.
A BOW shark. Are you serious?
I'm totally serious. I have no idea how Neil Diamond fits into all of this, but his dialogue is basically just a bunch of pompous rambling about how he's going to improve the world.
Wow, so he's like a delusional egomaniac with a flair for the dramatic.
Exactly, and that's where the parody really shines. You know, it highlights how absurd these villains can be.
Right. It takes that classic trope of the self-proclaimed genius and just cranks it up to 11.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's satire disguised as ridiculousness.
I love it. So we've got this outrageous cast of characters, but what about the plot itself? Where does the story take us?
Well, the opening scene throws us right into the action, no time wasted.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What happens?
It starts with Jill and Leon escaping from a sewer. But of course, it's not just any ordinary sewer escape.
I have a feeling it's going to involve more than just rats.
Oh, way more than rats. We're talking zombies, Andy Lickers.
Classic Resident Evil.
Right. But the way the script handles it is hilarious. Jill's dropping sarcastic one-liners while Leon is literally punting Lickers into oblivion.
Punting Lickers. Now that's a visual I wasn't expecting.
I know, right? It's so over the top, but it works perfectly with the comedic tone.
It sounds like a great blend of action and humor. So they're fighting for their lives, but still finding time to crack jokes.
Exactly. It sets the tone for the entire parody. Action-packed, ridiculous, and surprisingly self-aware.
I'm starting to get a real sense of this script now.
Good. But we can't forget about the heart of the story.
Which is?
Jill and Leon's relationship, of course.
The perfect pair amidst the chaos.
Yeah, the script even describes them as sticking together like a hand in a glove.
That's kind of sweet.
It is, but what's really interesting is that they're not portrayed as this, perfect power couple.
Oh. So there are cracks in their armor.
Definitely. There's this underlying awkwardness, like they're still figuring things out, both as partners and as individuals who've been through some really traumatic stuff.
That makes sense. They both carry a lot of baggage.
Yeah, and the script uses those vulnerabilities to create some really funny moments.
Did you give me an example?
Well, there's one scene where Jill is trying to be seductive.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, but she ends up sounding like she's ordering a sandwich at a deli.
Oh, no. I can already imagine how awkward that must be.
It's hilarious. It completely subverts those stereotypical romantic tropes you see in action movies,
I love it when parodies do that.
Me too. It keeps things fresh and unexpected.
Okay, so they're trying to navigate this crazy world and their relationship at the same time, but then what happens?
Well, just when things start to settle down, the plot throws a wrench in their plans.
A wrench? In what way?
They get separated.
Oh, no. That never ends well.
I know, right? And of course, it leads to even more chaos and hilarious situations.
So what happens when they're apart?
Well, Leon ends up having to face off against his vengeful ex, Maria.
Oh boy, that sounds intense.
It is. Meanwhile, Jill gets stuck dealing with Dylan and his bizarre plan.
The Neil Diamond bioterrorist. This I gotta hear.
Oh, trust me, it gets even weirder.
So how do they handle these separate challenges?
It's like watching two different comedy shows happening at the same time.
In what way?
Well, on one hand, you've got Leon trying to dodge Maria's attacks, which is basically a ton of physical comedy and slapstick.
So the parody plays with classic action movie tropes there.
Exactly. But then you have Jill, who's trying to reason with Dylan, which is all about witty dialogue and poking fun at his inflated ego.
Oh, I can imagine how frustrating that must be for her.
Oh, totally. But it makes for some of the funniest scenes in the script.
Okay, so we've got action, we've got humor, we've got relationship drama. What else does this parody throw at us?
Well, I think we have to talk about the highlight of the whole thing.
The highlight. What could top all that?
Dylan's master plan.
The Neil Diamond bioterrorist's master plan. Don't tell me he's going to break out in the song.
Not quite, but it's almost as ridiculous. His big plan involves becoming a hybrid BOW shark.
Wait, he wants to turn himself into a shark.
Not just any shark, a BOW shark, like a genetically modified super shark infused with all sorts of crazy viruses.
Okay, that officially wins the award for the most absurd villain plan I've ever heard.
Right. It's where the parody really embraces the, I guess you could say, inherent ridiculousness of the Resident Evil world.
That's what makes a good parody, taking those over-the-top elements and turning them up to 11.
Yeah. And the way the script describes this whole transformation is hilarious. It's like they took every crazy science fiction trope and threw it in there.
And what's Jill's reaction to all of this? I bet she's just as baffled as we are.
Oh, totally. She's basically just rolls her eyes and says, seriously. It's like she's the voice of the audience calling out the sheer absurdity of it all.
It's perfect. She's the one who keeps things grounded, the voice of reason in this whirlwind of crazy.
Exactly. She's the perfect foil to Dylan's over-the-top villainy.
This is shaping up to be quite the parody.
It really is. But, amidst all the action and humor, the script doesn't shy away from the heavier stuff either.
Oh, like what?
There's actually a really poignant scene where Jill and Leon are reflecting on everything they've been through, the people they've lost, the whole emotional toll of fighting zombies and bioterrorists.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of media tends to gloss over, the emotional impact to these events.
Right, but the script actually takes the time to address it, and it's done in a way that's really, surprisingly nuanced.
It's a good reminder that even in a parody, you can still explore those deeper themes.
Absolutely, and it helps to ground the characters and make them feel more human, even when they're surrounded by all this craziness.
Can you give me an example of how the script tackles this?
Yeah, there's this one line that really stuck with me. Jill says that Leon keeps her sane. Yeah, she says that without him, she would have become this, hardened, unfeeling shell.
Wow, that's powerful.
I know, right? It really drives home the importance of their relationship, It's not just about surviving the apocalypse. It's about finding that connection that keeps you human.
It's a beautiful message, especially in the context of this over-the-top parody.
Exactly. It shows how parody can be more than just jokes and slapstick. It can touch on those deeper emotions and themes in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Okay, so we've got action, humor, romance, and even some heartfelt moments. Where does the script go from there?
Well, it ends in a way that I didn't see coming.
Really?
Yeah, it shifts gears completely. We get this late-night conversation between Jill and Leon.
Okay.
But it's framed like an old-time radio drama.
That's an interesting choice.
I know, right? And they start talking about alternate realities and choices they could have made.
Whoa, that's getting pretty deep.
I know. It's not what you'd expect from a parody, right?
Yeah.
But it adds this whole other layer to the story.
It makes you think about the paths not taken, the what-ifs.
Exactly. Jill even compares life to a record, with an A side and a B side.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It suggests that there are always different versions of ourselves, different possibilities that we could have explored.
And the script doesn't give us any easy answers, It leaves those questions hanging in the air, which is what makes it so impactful.
It's a really clever way to wrap up the parody, leaving the audience with more to think about than just the jokes and the action.
It makes you realize that parody can be a vehicle for exploring these bigger ideas, like fate, free will, and the complexities of relationships.
Absolutely. And the use of the radio drama format is brilliant. It creates this sense of intimacy, like we're eavesdropping on a personal conversation between two people grappling with these big questions.
And that's what makes this parody so special. It's funny, it's action-packed, but it also makes you think.
It sounds like a wild ride.
It is, and it definitely leaves you with more questions than answers.
Well, I can't wait to delve deeper into this script with you.
Me too. There's so much more to unpack, and I think our listeners are going to love it.
I have a feeling you're right about that.
So buckle up, everyone, because this deep dive into the perfect pair is just getting started.
Onwards to part 2.
Let's do it.
One thing that really stands out to me about this parody is how it takes all these classic Resident Evil tropes, like the creepy labs, the over-the-top villains, all those crazy BOWs, and it just injects them with this absurd sense of humor.
Totally.
It's like it takes something so familiar and twists it just enough to make you see it in a whole new light.
Oh, absolutely. For example, there's that scene where Dylan's describing his whole plan to, inject himself with every single umbrella virus, and then what does he do?
Wow.
He gets eaten by a giant shark.
Oh my gosh, that's so ridiculous.
I know, right? But at the same time, it kind of feels like a natural progression from all the crazy creatures we've seen in the games.
Right. It's like they're taking that whole concept of BOWs and pushing it to the absolute limit, but for laughs.
Exactly. It's playing on that shared knowledge that we have as fans.
Yeah.
And pushing those boundaries of what's believable to create humor.
It's like a knowing wink to everyone who's been playing these games for years and seeing those BOWs evolve from, basic zombies to giant mutated spiders and beyond.
Right. And what makes it even funnier is that the script plays it completely straight.
Yeah.
So, the absurdity of the situation just speaks for itself.
It's all about letting the ridiculousness shine through.
And Jill's reaction to all of this is just perfect.
I bet.
She's just like, wait, seriously,
Yeah.
You think that's actually going to work? It's like she's the only sane person in this entire crazy world.
Right. She's the voice of reason, calling out how insane Dylan's plan actually is.
And that contrast between her, grounded pragmatism and his delusional grandiosity, it's comedy gold.
It's like that classic comedic pairing, the straight man versus the outlandish dreamer.
Totally. But even with all this absurdity going on, the parody still manages to sneak in these moments of, like, genuine emotion.
Really?
Yeah, like there's that scene where Jill and Leon are just, watching the sunrise together, reflecting on everything they've lost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's such a stark contrast to all the over-the-top action and humor that's happening everywhere else.
Yeah, it's like a moment of quiet reflection in the midst of all the chaos.
Yeah, and it really got to me, It reminds us that these characters aren't just, like, action figures.
Right.
They're actual people with real feelings, and they're carrying all this emotional baggage.
Yeah, it's nice to see that the parody acknowledges that.
Absolutely, and the way it's handled is so subtle and nuanced.
Oh.
Yeah, like, there aren't any big dramatic outbursts or, like, tearful confessions. It's just this, like, quiet understanding between two people who've been through so much together.
It's the kind of scene that sticks with you.
It really is. And there's this one line that Jill says that really hit me hard. She says that Leon keeps her sane. Yeah, and that without him, she would have become this, like, hardened shell.
That's heavy.
I know. It's such a powerful statement about their connection.
It really highlights how their relationship is more than just romantic. It's about survival on an emotional level.
Totally. And it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human connection can be such a source of strength and hope.
I love that the parody explores that.
Yeah, it adds so much depth to the story. And speaking of depth, I think we need to circle back to that radio drama ending.
Yeah, that was a really unexpected twist.
Right. It's not just like a clever way to wrap things up. It's like a whole other layer to the parody.
It definitely adds a layer of meta commentary, like we're suddenly stepping outside the story and reflecting on the nature of choice and consequence.
Yeah, and that shift in format from the action comedy to this, like, really intimate late night conversation, it creates this sense of, like, reflection and introspection.
Makes you wonder, what if we had made different choices?
Yeah.
Where would we be now?
Exactly. And that analogy that Jill makes about life being like a record.
Oh, yeah.
With an A side and a B side. Oh, it's genius.
It really makes you think about all those what if moments in your own life, right?
Absolutely. And the fact that the script doesn't offer any easy answers, that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah, it leaves you with those questions lingering in your mind long after you finish reading it.
And it just shows how skilled the writer is to weave these really profound questions into a parody that's also hilarious, action-packed.
It challenges that idea that comedy can't be thought-provoking or emotionally resonant.
Yeah. Like, who would have thought that a parody about zombies and bad puns could make you contemplate the meaning of life?
It's a testament to the power of storytelling.
So the parody's called The Perfect Pair, but it kind of makes you wonder,
what's that?
Does the perfect anything even exist?
Especially in a world as crazy as the one Jill and Leon live in.
I know, right? And that's what I love about this script. It doesn't try to give us any easy answers.
It just presents all these different facets of connection and lets us, the audience, decide what perfect really means.
Exactly. So is it about shared experiences? Is it about overcoming obstacles together? Or is it about finding someone who can make you laugh even when it feels like the world is ending?
It's a question that I think we all grapple with.
Totally. And the parody seems to suggest that maybe perfect isn't about finding someone who, like, completes you, but about choosing to be with someone who sees you, flaws and all, and chooses to stay.
That's a beautiful thought.
I know, right? And that choice, that commitment to sticking together even when things get tough, that's maybe the most perfect thing of all.
It's about recognizing that no relationship is without its challenges, but the strength comes from facing those challenges together.
Exactly. And that's why The Perfect Pair isn't just some silly parody. It's a story about finding connection and meaning in a world that can feel pretty meaningless sometimes.
And it uses humor to highlight those deeper truths in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even amidst all the chaos, there's beauty to be found in the connections we make with others.
And that's the power of good storytelling.
It can make you laugh, it can make you cry, it can make you think about the world in a whole new way.
And sometimes it can even make you appreciate the absurdity of a bioterrorist who wants to become a shark.
I mean, hey, you got to give them points for creativity.
That's for sure.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here today.
We have.
But I think there's still so much more to unpack.
Oh, absolutely.
So why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll come back and dive even deeper into The Perfect Pair.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so we've laughed, we've cried, we've even, like, contemplated the meaning of life.
Sounds about right.
And it's all thanks to a parody script about zombies and, puns.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has, but before we officially wrap up our deep dive into the perfect pair, I think there's one more thing we got to talk about.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Well, it's the title itself, the perfect pair.
Yeah. It just got me thinking, like, what does that even mean?
That's a good question. It's a pretty loaded title.
Right. Like, is it about finding your soulmate, your partner in crime?
Right.
Or is it something even, like, deeper than that?
And that's the beauty of this parody. It doesn't give us a simple answer.
Right. Instead, it shows us all these different pairings, like romantic ones, friendships, even like those relationships where people are like trying to kill each other.
It's true. We see a lot of different dynamics at play.
And it's not always pretty, right?
Definitely not. We see Jill and Leon disagree, Maria's jealousy, even Dylan's like weird partnership with that shark.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that shark.
It's like the script is saying, hey, relationships are messy.
Right. Complicated.
Even when you throw zombies into the mix.
Exactly. And by showing us those messy parts, it lets us connect with the characters on a much deeper level.
Absolutely. We see their flaws, their vulnerabilities. Yeah, and all those struggles they go through just to like find a connection in this world that seems determined to tear them apart.
And that's what makes them feel real.
Oh, totally. Like, remember that scene where Jill admits she's like terrible at dirty talk?
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious, but it also makes her seem so much more relatable.
For sure. It's like even badass zombie slayers have awkward moments in their relationship.
Exactly. And that's what makes this parody so effective, It takes these like larger-than-life characters and grounds them in these like really human experiences.
It reminds us that we're all just trying to find connection and belonging no matter how crazy the world gets.
Totally. And that search for connection, maybe that's what the perfect pair is really about.
Maybe perfect isn't about finding someone who just, ticks all the boxes.
Right. Maybe it's about finding someone who accepts you for who you are.
Yeah. Flaws and all.
Exactly. And someone who challenges you to grow.
Supports you.
Yeah. And can make you laugh even when you feel like screaming.
And isn't that a pretty perfect definition of partnership?
I think so. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to appreciate just how powerful parody can be.
Couldn't agree more.
It can make us laugh, make us think, and even like teach us something about ourselves.
And the relationships that, make life worth living.
Well said. So to everyone listening, I'll leave you with this. What does the perfect pair mean to you? Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.